Do you like paper airplanes? I do, although I've never been able to fold one up properly and really get one to fly well. But I really have always liked paper airplanes, and the best paper airplane flight I ever saw got me suspended briefly from high school in the spring of my freshman year. We were in geometry class on the third floor of the high school, and it was just one of those beautiful spring days. And the windows were open, a nice light breeze was coming through, and the geometry teacher had to leave for some reason, and he gave us some proofs to work on while he was gone, so we knew he was going to be gone for a while, and he left, and oddly enough, I was sitting there working on the proofs because I like geometry, which was strange for me because I am constitutionally, I am an English major, not a math person at all, but I did like geometry for some reason, the logic, the proofs, I enjoyed it. So I'm sitting there working, and Billy Doucette, we called him Cartoon because his face was kind of flat. He had a flat face, and he kind of looked like when Daffy Duck runs into the wall, and he gets the flat, and the beak goes flat. So we called him Cartoon. But anyway, Cartoon gets up, and he folds up a paper airplane, he goes to the window, and he throws it out. And, we all just looked, and this paper airplane, it just caught a breeze and went up. So we're sitting down, and we could see this paper airplane flying, and it's flying, and it's flying. And then it dipped down, and so all of the kids in the class got up, and we went to the windows, and we're watching this paper airplane, and it's going, across the school property, across the street. This flight is like a minute and a half long, and it then banks to the right and comes back toward the building and lands at the steps of the main entrance of the school. And we're just, wow, that was just great. It was an awesome moment. We also see the principal come out, pick up the paper airplane, and look angrily up to see 20 or 30 students running away from the window, sitting down. The principal shows up at the door a few minutes later, doesn't say a word, just looks in the room, points to me. So I joined the principal out in the hall, and without saying a word, without a second thought, he writes out a detention for me, and he hands it to me. I said, "What's this for?" And he said, "You know what it's for." I said, "What? You probably think I threw the paper airplane." I said, "I didn't throw the paper airplane. I had nothing to do with it." He goes, "You're going to detention." I said, "Now, I'm 15. I have this thing about authority to begin with, and this impulsiveness nature, which has served me well and ill, and this is on the ill side of the measure." And I said, "Look, I am not going to detention for something I didn't do." And he said, "If you don't go to detention, you're suspended." And I ripped up the detention, threw it in the air, and said, "I'm not going." Now, this dramatic flourish may have been a bridge too far for him. He said, "Go home, you're suspended." I said, "Fine," although it wasn't. And I'm really mad. I went to my locker, and I'm slamming lockers and throwing books in, and I leave the school, and I'm tromping home, and I'm just furious. A teenager has a sensibility of justice when it's aimed at them. They don't necessarily see it anywhere else, but I was furious. And on the way home, I actually passed the administrative offices for the school district. And without a second thought, I went in. I found the superintendent's office. I knocked on his door. And I told the secretary I wanted to see the superintendent of schools right now. I may not have said right now. I said I want to see the superintendent of schools. So she was kind of surprised, but she went in and told him that Mr. Crocamo was here to see you. And he saw me. And I went in, and I wasn't doing anything, and he gave me a detention. And he said, "Calm down, calm down." I got the story through about, he didn't even ask anybody in the class who did it or anything like that. He just gave it to me. I said, "It's grossly unfair. I'm not going to stand for this." He said, go back to school, go to the principal's office. So I go back to school, and apparently the superintendent called the principal's office, because when I got to school and entered the principal's office, the principal was waiting for me, and he seemed somewhat agitated. So I go into his office, and he said, You went to see the superintendent of schools? I said, well, I told you I wasn't going to go to detention. I told you I didn't do it. You wouldn't listen to me. It's unfair. Blah, blah. He said, look, we've got a problem here. Students can't just decide they're not going to obey teachers. It's just not going to work out. And ripping up a detention and defying teachers, we just can't allow this sort of thing. I said, even when you're wrong? He said, look, we're human. We make mistakes. But even so, we can't allow students to defy teachers. So you're going to have to go to detention. But I said, I didn't do it. He said, well, I'm going to write you a detention for ripping up the detention. Well, I did do that. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I saw an exit ramp here, so I'm going to take it. So he gave me detention. He wrote a detention. He didn't specify what the detention was for on the detention. So I'm sure in his mind, it was for the paper airplane I didn't throw. But in my mind, it's for ripping up the first detention. So I call that a draw. Thank you.